What's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Just letting you know with this little bit at the start that we now have a Patreon. Sub up to that and you can get all these episodes early and ad-free, so you won't even see this bit at the start. You get them a few days before the main episodes drop out. We've got some great guests coming up. We've got some studio episodes. We've got some Zoom episodes with some fantastic rappers talking about the films they love and the films that influenced them. We got a lot going on there. Plus, you get some bonus content like film reviews, all that kind of thing. I don't need to explain this to you. You know what a Patreon is. But yeah, it's patreon.com/Kinell Sinister Cinema. So check that out. Peace. Yes, people. What's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Kinell Sinister Cinema is brought to you by Forgotten Sons Apparel. Check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Forgotten Sons Apparel is a York-based streetwear brand drawing inspiration from alternative culture, tattoos, film, classic TV and cartoons from our childhood. In our own words, if you like our stuff half as much as we do, then we like it twice as much as you. I'm a big fan of this brand and I love the guys who make it. They've supported me for years, way before I was podcasting. They supported me in my battle rap career. You might have seen me rocking some of their garms on Don't Flop and other leagues. I love Forgotten Sons Apparel and I'm urging you all to check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Right, now on with the show. Hey, what's good? It is Kinell once again, and we are back at it with the KSC Podcast. It's been a bit of a hectic week, but it always is. If you want to be catching up with some of my old battles, I got a couple up now on the Don't Flop Patreon. You can catch me versus Danny Jack up there now from the One of Those Days events, and you can also catch me and Gas Buff with our horrorcore bars battle. That one was nuts. Absolutely mental scenes. That's from the April Fools. And you can get both of those events just with a £5 sign up to the Patreon. Yeah, but let's get straight into it, actually. I'm not arsed with the long intros today. I'm going to bring in a very good friend of mine, a very talented individual. It's Mackenzie.
Yes. What's happening, bro?
How are we, G?
It's been a long time. We got matching beards now. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, fucking the Red Beard gang is strong on the KSC pod right now.
Yes.
Before we launch into the pod, let's drop some a bit of a plug up front. Got a big event coming up.
Yes, I do. July 15th, Glasgow, the Iron Bar's 7th birthday. Kinell will be battling there. I will be main eventing against Carter Deems coming all the way from Atlanta. We got Unanimous versus Jinx. We got the return of Acre. We've got just like a very, very sick card lineup. Biggest card we've had in Scottish battle rap. Like, I'm gonna say in years, but I might even say ever. Like, to be honest, like it's up there, man. So definitely, if you're in Glasgow and you like some of the old rhyming insults, come along. Go to Iron Bars, IRMBRZ. I'm sure Kinell will put the links up in the description. Get yourself.
I will do. Yeah,
early bird tickets are
£10.
I will remind you, bro. Early bird tickets are £10, and they're going fast. So yeah.
Yeah, early bird tickets moving rapid. That's going to be fucking mental, man. Carter Deems in Glasgow is the combination I never knew I needed till you told me it was happening.
Yeah, man. Like we appreciate jokes up here a lot. You know, that's what a lot of people say about the Scottish scene anyway. It's like a lot more jokey in the style and shit. So, which is good, man. I think Carter will definitely do good in that, man. And yeah, man, I can't wait.
Yeah, and we got Respect B hosting, have we?
The legendary Respect BA coming back to host for the first time since COVID era. I think he hosted on one of the COVID streams that we did. But yeah, man, it's good to see him back. He actually sent me some previews of some new music that he's going to release very soon. Respect BA's been away for a little bit, but he's not been sleeping. Like, he's been working on loads of shit. So yeah, man, it's good to see him back in the mix.
Yeah, man, he's not on the socials, but he's always up to something. Like,
Oh, aye.
I quite like his watch YouTube channel where he
Yeah,
does
yeah,
first
yeah.
things.
Yeah, shout out to that, man. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, if you just type Respect BA into YouTube, you'll find it.
Yeah, I think it's BA Reacts. I might be wrong on
Yeah.
that. I'll drop that in the link. I'll drop that link in the description and all. Like, but yeah, safe. We're gonna have a bit of a general chat like today, and the reason I say general chat is because I haven't done any research about Scottish cinema.
Yeah, man. The talk that nobody knew they needed, Scottish cinema. Nah, man. Like Scotland has like historically had a reputation for what sometimes gets called Scottish miserableism, which is not just a cinematic genre, but a general cultural attitude. We are a miserable bunch of bastards. The rumors are true. But in that, I think like a lot of like very, very good films have been made here that kind of pick up on that vibe. So that's kind of what I wanted to go for today's chat. Obviously, there's been like big budget movies made in Scotland, especially in the last few years, because like it's cheaper for American crews to literally fly everybody over to Glasgow and make bits of Glasgow look like New York than it is to film in New York. So, you know, we had the Batman movie filming here, we had the Tetris movie filming here. Even going back like years and years ago, like there's bits of the Dark Knight that are filmed in Glasgow, World War Z. Like there's tons and tons of movies that get filmed here. But yeah, in terms of movies made by Scottish directors, Scottish writers, and that are actually set in Scotland, we're definitely on that heavy depressing tip. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's something that people regard as like it's regarded as quite like British phenomenon. The whole
Mhm,
idea of the kitchen sink drama, but
mhm.
like when you take that to Scotland, you're operating on a whole other level of bleak.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Um, yeah, we just get into it because, like, I sent you a little list. So, like, one of the dudes who I think I would credit him as being like the guy who kicked off the whole miserablest wave here. It's a man by the name of Bill Douglas who grew up in New Craighill, which is a little mining village south of Edinburgh. And he was born in the early 1930s. So he had a very, very bleak upbringing. And when he came back from World War II, he met a guy in there, sort of middle class, more well to do English guy, who introduced him to things like art and literature, and it blew his fucking mind. He went back to his town and said, "Listen, I'm not going to be a miner like all of my family were. Um, I'm going to go and like be an artist and a filmmaker." And the people there didn't take too kindly to that. He fucked off. And after years and years of grinding, he made this trilogy of movies called the Bill Douglas Life Trilogy. Oh, that's what it's dubbed. That's not the official title. But yeah, like if you want to talk about some bleak cinema, start there. They're really, really beautiful films. I saw them a very, very long time ago. Um, you back, I don't know, probably about 10 years ago or so. But the way the bleakness is captured, they're all in black and white. There's really no musical soundtrack to speak of. There's very little dialogue, and it's all just about the growing up in this small tight knit community where there's like really no way out. Um, it's harsh, but a lot of fucking work went into these movies. You could tell like every frame is very tightly composed. Uses a lot of like very expressionistic lighting, a lot of light and dark and shadows. It's really, really beautiful. Um, and to be honest, like Bill Douglas could have made these films, screened them a few times, and then they would have just disappeared. It's only because the head of the BFI um, caught these films somewhere at a screening and loved them so much, he decided to like use his industry ins to get Bill Douglas a lecturing film job. And that's pretty much what he did for the rest of his life, making other films like in his spare time until he eventually passed away. But he's definitely a filmmaker who doesn't get enough recognition in terms of just Britain in general. because that kind of kitchen sink drama thing, he was doing it like way back in like the early 70s, you know. So yeah, man, Bill Douglas, father of Scottish miserableism, but I don't know if that's like a badge that he'd be proud to wear. I don't know.
And it's quite interesting, like to have someone like come from that kind of sort of background, whereas influences aren't really like growing up around artists and consuming art around them. His influences are the environment around him and the people that are around him. And he comes to it later and applies that to art.
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of the other like British films around that era, it'd be like from like art school people, like, and they'd be involving like theater actors, and they were like dead dialogue heavy and flipping all the projection and shit, like the fucking actors in it are trying to like speak to the back row of a fucking theater still.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so in the when Bill Douglas made this trilogy of films, he cast people from that area, that kind of South Edinburgh area, from places like New Craighill and Niddrie, and you know, he stuck with the main actor who plays him, or his analog, a boy named Jamie, in the movies. He stuck with him for the whole time, so he had to wait until he grew up before he shot anymore. So like the whole process of it took like 15 years, you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it is interesting when people come from those sort of backgrounds and then get involved in filmmaking. It gives it a whole new like twist. And yeah, nobody else, I don't think, could really just nail the tone of it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that creates like quite an interesting blueprint, because like Scotland does have there's a feel to Scotland. There's very much a national identity, like flipping like if you just drop me somewhere randomly in Scotland, I could figure out I was in Scotland just from the vibe before I spoke to everyone. I swear down, like,
yeah.
It's quite interesting that your first sort of major filmmaker is someone that's sort of like able to portray that, because it means you have a blueprint for like everyone else going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think talking about another filmmaker who like chronicles very kitchen sink things, I think it makes sense that moving forward, fast forwarding, you know, sort of 30 years, Ken Loach came up to Scotland and collaborated with Paul Laverty, a Scottish screenwriter, to make a trilogy of films set in and around Glasgow, which again, this really stamped it for the Scottish miserableism thing, because this was no longer something that could be, it is an artifact of a time gone by, an artifact of an old era of mining villages and all of this. This was like, no, this is what's happening now in the inner cities and the housing estates. And it was very, very powerful, because it really resonated with a lot of people, like especially if you grew up in Scotland in the 90s. You watch a film like Sweet 16 or My Name is Joe, and you just immediately recognize the characters, you recognize the places. You know, it's just these films, it's interesting. Like a lot of Scottish people, it divides opinion, because it's like 50-50. Some people love it because it is that slice of life. But some people hate it because it's that slice of life, because it's like, this is our lives. Why do we need to watch it on fucking TV? You know?
This is it. And also, like, it's worth noting that, like, flipping, like Scotland's not really getting that kind of outside attention on like what's in there, like flipping the media, particularly in it is very England centric, particularly London centric. So like no one's really like drawing attention to the atmospheres and environments that are like sort of very unique to the Scottish experience around that time. And so when Ken Loach came, that's when it sort of like exposed it to people outside of Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the gritty, real, everyday. I mean, before the Ken Loach Glasgow trilogy, we of course have to talk about probably the number one film that most people think of whenever they think of films that are made in Scotland, and that's Trainspotting, which is an absolute masterpiece. I love that film. The sequel, not so much, but and I know people who worked on the Trainspotting sequel. My boy Gary Fraser, big him up. He was second AD on the Trainspotting sequel. It just wasn't the same vibe. I mean, Trainspotting is just like a seminal film of the 90s, and it does. The thing about Trainspotting is there's probably a bit too much humor and a bit too much surrealism in it to really like count it in among this like Scottish miserablest genre. You know what I mean? It's very punchy and it's very like frenetic, and it's got an incredible musical score, and none of these things really like appear in the more like quote unquote like miserablest films.
Well, interestingly enough, I'd say like flipping Irving Welsh's writing in the original book, I'd say the original text, that's very rooted in the Scottish miserableism.
Yeah. And I guess like I don't know. I mean, like Danny Boyle probably just had to like do a lot of that kind of cinematic trickery to make it palatable to a wide audience, because it is like it's such a dark story, and like there's so many just dark scenes in it. But there's an element of removal of artifice, like just with some of the things, the way that they're like envisioned, like crawling into the toilet or sinking into the floor, like those kind of scenes. There's like a comedic element to even the darkest bits, like that. Like as freaky as it is the first time you see it, like you got to admit, the baby on the ceiling, there's a bit of a dark comedy element to that shit too, right?
Right, yeah. And when you read the writing, it's just like the bleakest, like flipping sort of Scottish dialect descriptions of it, like. So just the idea of like, how can we make this flashy is just like an insane decision to be looking at that book and like thinking that. Like,
yeah. But I mean, obviously, I mean, I don't know too much about what the collaborative process was that Irving Welsh and Danny Boyle went through for that, or if there was any collaborative process between them at all. I don't really know, but it would be very interesting to see how they came to that decision together, or how Irving Welsh felt about it. But yeah, I mean, it is like one of the most seminal movies of the 90s. But the thing that sticks with me for like Trainspotting is that when you were talking about the kind of vibe and sensibilities of people in Scotland, the rant that Renton goes on when they're outside, they go to take the hike in the countryside, and he's just like, shite being Scottish, with the lowest of the low, with the scum of the earth. Some people hate the English, I don't. They're just wankers. We're colonized by wankers. Like that whole rant is just like, yeah, it just just puts the finger right on the pulse of the national sensibility, man. It's great.
because that's it. Like, there's two sides to things. Like, when you're looking with like when you're looking at like quite a bleak sort of, when you're looking like quite a sort of bleak setup like that, like the sort of two sides to like living in bleakness. Because I mean, like fucking, I wouldn't say that like North Wales was like fucking Scotland, but I did grow up in like fucking a former mining town under Thatcher, when fucking heroin was coming in and all this. So I fucking understand growing up in a bleak environment. And there's sort of two ways you can go with art expressing it, and one is just show what it is, so that people can understand what it is, the slice of life. And the other side of it is like, because when you're living in a bleak environment, it's not just misery every day. You just find humor in darkness.
Yeah. Absolutely. The gallows humor kind of element to it, and that's something that Trainspotting does actually very, very well. Yeah, I mean, like Ken Loach's films, and I do like Ken Loach's the three films that he made in Glasgow. But there isn't there's elements of humor in it. It does show you that there's bits of joy that people have in their lives. Like in Sweet 16, the main character, played by Martin Compston, this 15-year-old who's just basically just like a little street urchin, like he just goes about like causing mischief. Like there's a scene where he's like a guy in a van asks him to like help back up, and he keeps backing the guy up until he runs over a police motor, like just stuff like that. But yeah, like that's kind of a bit of my problem with some of Ken Loach's films in general, especially the one about the guy getting sanctioned, Daniel Blake. It's just like bad thing after bad thing after bad thing, just hammering you just all the time. And you're like, bro, if I wanted to be depressed like this, I would just like go to the job centre, you know what I mean?
Fucking Daniel Blake. Fucking when I was watching that, it was like I was living with a girl like this was many years ago. This was over Christmas, and like mum had come up to stay, and her mum's like proper like fucking like Cockney, like fucking jellied eels and all that, like. And fucking, we watched Daniel Blake. Fucking like I just heard it was good, and I didn't realize it was a Ken Loach thing. And obviously, it's this bleakest thing. End of it, like fucking, you know, the women folk are in tears, and like you know, obviously, like you know, it's kind of like there's a political element to it. You know, it's like to show you the reality of these things, to show like where people with left wing values come from, and like right at the end, as the credits were rolling. Girlfriend at the time, mum, was in absolute tears, and she looks up and she just goes, all of that would never have happened to him if he was Muslim. I thought, fuck it out.
Missing the point a bit of the movie there, man. Hey, that's crazy.
Wow,
you know?
How can you sit through that and come out of it more right wing?
That's
you are so far right.
Something. That speaks to something though, because that speaks to like, yeah, the cat like. Oh, anyway, let's not get into that. But no, Daniel Blake, the one scene that just sort of pissed me off about that, especially, and I know it's a heavy political film, and I know that Ken Loach is very, very left wing and like whatever. Like it's good cinema is good cinema, but there's one scene that really pissed me off because it's the kind of thing that a student filmmaker would do. He wrote into the movie a scene where a homeless guy basically like goes on a like rant about like socialism, right? And the homeless guy was fucking Scottish as well, right? So, and I'm not even saying that that's fucking inaccurate, but yeah, it's like one of these things where it's like if you know a first year film student would be told not to do that, you know, don't just write the political subtext of the movie into the actual script and then have a scene where a guy just shows up and reads it, you know. But yeah, I mean, I like Ken Loach's films. My Name is Joe. We touched on that as well.
Yeah, that was one like I saw in school. Like I had a Scottish teacher who like flipping. I think it was like a DOS off day. Like I think it was like last day of term or something. And like flipping, all the other teachers were like fucking wheeling in the fucking what should we call it? Like the fucking big telly on the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
man, that was that's when you knew the day was going to be good, man. When the TV came in, but then she puts on a Ken Loach film, and then you're like, oh, fuck.
It was the one Scottish teacher goes, "This is where I'm from."
Oh no! Yeah, My Name is Joe, and for those of you who don't know, it's a film about a recovering alcoholic who was a violent man who is trying to reform his life, but he ends up getting caught up with a local drug boss paying off one of his friends' debt, who's a recovering junkie. And the film just like snowballs from there. But there's one particular the scene that, again, a very, very long time since I've seen it, but the scene that really sticks in my mind is like there's a bar fight scene towards the end. There's this just like sudden explosion of violence. And Peter Mullen is so good at that. Like Peter Mullen is probably the best at convincing you that he's genuinely a psychopath. I mean, there's another film. It's not set in Scotland, but this fits into the miserablism theme very well. It's called Tyrannosaur, where Peter Mullen plays again. It's a very similar character to My Name is Joe, a very violent alcoholic, and of course he's drawing on influences and experiences that he had growing up with members of his family. But as a good way to
do that
segue,
better than everyone and all. Like, flipping, he's so cold with it. He can turn any film into a Scottish miserableism film just by being in it. Fucking, have you seen Session 9?
Was that the one in the mental hospital?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen that.
It's an American film, like, fucking about hauntings and shit.
Yeah.
And fucking, like, he manages to turn that into a fucking, just by being in it, turns it into Scottish miserableism.
And that's like not a very good movie, but he's very good in it. Like,
I love that movie, man. I'm not
you
gonna
like
lie.
it a lot?
Yeah.
I didn't really like it, but I liked him in it. And I liked the fact that he didn't do an American accent. That he was playing like a Scottish dude in it. It was like, that added a dimension to it for me. But Peter Mullen's films themselves are like quite, there's a bit more surrealism. He mixes the miserableism with the surrealism quite well. There's a short film he made called Close, which you can find on YouTube. And it's kind of like a David Lynch movie set in a Scottish tenement building. It's very, very strange and quite surreal. But I think if we were talking about Bill Douglas being like the start of Scottish miserableism, it probably ended with the film Ned's, which was made by Peter Mullen, because that film was very well received internationally, but it wasn't so well received in Scotland. Part of the reason was, I think, Scottish people at that point, had probably about two decades of like films that were very well known outside of Scotland that portrayed Scotland as being this like total drug, get stabbed to death by a heroin needle nightmare. Like, people are just gonna fucking fling a haggis supper at you and then stab you where you're like not looking, like shit like that. One of the other reasons is the Scottish Screen gave Peter Mullen like their entire budget for a year. So it's like, you want to get funding.
Got made.
Yeah, nothing else got made. Seriously, like you want to get your funding for your student short film. Sorry, go work for Peter Mullen, and a lot of people did. But Ned's, for my money, I did like that movie. And again, anyone watching who doesn't know, Ned's is the Scottish term for like chav. It's an acronym that stands for non-educated delinquent. And in the film, the main character is actually a very, very smart kid who's excelling at school, but he lives in an area where there's like a lot of heavy gang activity. He's got an abusive and alcoholic father, and all of it just starts catching up with him, and he just starts getting more and more involved in that. Like, and when I say gang activity, it's aimless gang activity. It's not like if we were to talk about
territorial. It's not territorial as such. It's just people with fuck all to do.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of it was, like, again, as I say, like, I grew up, in the outskirts of Glasgow in the 90s, and there was like a lot of stuff that happened, but it was literally boys from one side of an estate going to war with boys from another side of the estate over nothing, like literally nothing. Like, and it's not like county lines, drug gangs, or any of that. So Ned shows that very well. But in Ned's, Peter Mullen plays the dude's father, his alcoholic father, and again, he's frighteningly good. But there are certain scenes where the kind of intoxication element is really played up with a lot of surreal imagery. There's one scene in particular which kind of borrows a little bit from the Jesus scene in Bad Lieutenant, which is so jarring because you're watching this like very slice of life movie, and then suddenly there's this kind of ethereal imagery brought into it. But I like Peter Mullen's Ned's quite a lot, man, and I've got a lot of respect for Peter Mullen, just as an actor and a filmmaker, and just as a dude, because as much as he did get a lot of public funding to do it, like, he made sure he hired people. He wasn't bringing in crew from overseas. He was hiring people where he was shooting. And from what I heard, again, from second and third hand information from people who worked on the film, treating everyone very, very well, and just a very actually, surprisingly, given how much of a psycho he looks when he's acting, he's actually just a very, very chill dude. So yeah, big love to Peter Mullen. He had one of the best quotes that I've ever read from a filmmaker, where he said, "I didn't meet real gangsters until I got into the film industry." So you know, he didn't want to name names. That was before the whole Weinstein shit popped off as well.
Yeah, I'm flipping. I'm gonna. Flipping like that. That's we've had a good little sort of breakdown of the movement, but one thing that I found really surreal, before this, I was just going through my letterboxd. I've been running that since like 2018, so like it's got everything I've watched in there. I was looking at what Scottish movies I'd watched and what movies I'd set in Scotland I watched. Weird flipping thing, given we've just been talking about Scottish minstrelsism, is that my two highest rated Scottish films are both musicals. Flipping, one's The Wicker Man.
Okay,
and
that's a musical?
It is. Have you not watched it recently? There's so many musical numbers in it.
I've not watched that movie in a very, very long time, you know. I maybe need to watch it again.
Man. It's a musical, like fucking Britt Ekland doing the fucking naked dance routine to tempt the English virgin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose like there's the whole singing at the yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to think about The Wicker Man in different terms.
Yeah. And what should we call it? The other one's a much more recent one. Anna and the Apocalypse.
Yep. John McPhail directed that, and again, some people that. By the way, for people who don't know, like prior to me being a battle rapper, like I was very involved in filmmaking up here. Directed some stuff of my own and collaborated with a lot of other people on their other stuff. And now it's actually translated over to like what I do for work a lot of the time, which is like filming live events and music videos and corporates and anything anyone wants me to fucking point a camera at, basically. But yeah, Anna and the Apocalypse I've not actually seen, so I can't comment on it. But actually, what I was going to bring it up because it does point to the change that happened in Scotland after. I mean, when did Ned's come out? Hang on, I've got this thing. 2011. Yeah, after sort of that time, the early 2010s. The films that were getting made here moved away from that kind of miserablest formula, and we were getting a lot more, as you said, things like musicals, comedies, especially comedies, genre pieces, low budget horrors, things like that. And that's the kind of things that certainly a lot of the people that I knew back then wanted to make. They didn't want to make another movie like Sweet 16 or like Ratcatcher or whatever. They wanted to like make genre pieces in Scotland. Now, again, not seen Anna and the Apocalypse. Maybe is it good?
It's very good. It's a regular Christmas watch for me. For like, I think a lot of people who are familiar with the KSC will be, but it's a Scottish zombie musical set at Christmas, and
mate, that's it. That's funding application done. You know what I mean? Yeah. Fucking Netflix pitch done. Let's go.
It's flipping excellent. Like the musical numbers themselves, like if you listen to them in isolation, they are very like fucking kind of high school musical Glee kind of things, like, but they just work so well in the combination. Like the horror side of it, like the zombies, is all like very realistic. The gore in it's very realistic, and it's kind of like the characters in it are very like upbeat. They're sort of like a lot of teenagers, and there's one girl's dad, and like it sort of revolves around their relationships at the school, and like the backdrop is it is that kind of bleakness you'll find what should we call it in less developed areas of Scotland, like burnt out cars and shit. But it's never, the bleakness is never a thing. It's just something in the background, and these people are living their lives in spite of it, like. And flipping, they're having fun, and like, their life isn't all about fucking alcoholism and heroin and death and all that. Like,
there's a movie. This is from 2011. This is from like a decade ago or so. But there's a movie that does that same kind of thing. It's a Scottish comedy set in a brothel. It's called A Spanking in Paradise. And facts. And I mean, apparently apparently, I don't know the dude, but apparently it was based on this guy's true story because he was raised in a brothel. Like his mother was a madam, and he was raised in this brothel. So a lot of the stuff was based around the things that he saw on a daily basis. But again, it's a comedy, and it's not like a black comedy either. Like it's surprisingly like really lighthearted. So yeah, there's that. I mean, there's like, as I said, there's more of the movies that are coming out of Scotland now do fall more on that that kind of comedy tip. There's a movie called Schemers that just came out recently that was doing very well, which I've not seen yet. But yeah, it's definitely. I mean,
that scheme as in like a schemies, housing schemes.
Yeah. It's set in the 1970s. So again, as I said, it's like it's something that would be probably, you know, could have been the same plot as a Miserablest movie, but they've put like a comedy spin on it. So I don't know. Maybe life's getting better in Scotland. Maybe the SNP are doing a great job. Maybe, maybe everything's going to be okay. Maybe, but I'm just a pessimistic, miserable cunt, and I love my dark, depressing movies. So let's talk about Lynn Ramsay, because Lynn Ramsay is the best director to come out of Scotland, hands down.
Let's
ever.
do that.
Will fight anyone. Don't give a fuck. Yeah, Lynn Ramsay. Her most famous movie, probably to date. I should have Wikipedia'd her before this. But we need to talk about Kevin.
Oh yes,
which is a phenomenal film, and one of the reasons it's so phenomenal is it's a film about a school shooter that stars. It turns out stars an actual psychopath, Ezra Miller. Anyone who doesn't know of his exploits should probably go and look up videos of him getting arrested, and you can see what kind of human being this is. Yeah, but we need to talk about Kevin as I mean, it's a film that's made by a non-American about school shootings, and it does this in like Lynn Ramsay's whole thing is apparently she starts when she's developing a film from the rough outline and then thinks about the soundtrack, but not just like the musical soundtrack, like how the sound effects are going to work. And that's the first thing that she plans, and you can really see it and hear it in her movies. And we need to talk about Kevin. There's this scene where, you know, it's suggested that Kevin, the school shooter, was responsible for his sister losing her eye. And as his mother's talking to him about it, he's eating a lychee, and the lychee is like the same texture and like size as an eyeball. And the close-ups on the lychee with the sound effects, with the conversation in it, is just like, yeah, Lynn Ramsay is the GOAT of Scottish filmmaking, in my opinion. No one else is doing it like her. Again, back in the late 90s, she made some fairly miserablest shorts, and then a film called Ratcatcher. And the only way to describe it is it's like the Scottish Gummel. It's this like loss of innocence coming of age film about a young boy who his friend drowns while they're playing in the canal, and then he just takes a trek across town on his own. And it's the whole film is just about loss of innocence in every kind of respect of it. But there's a lot of like really like dreamy imagery, and it's one that you kind of have to watch to understand like just exactly what it's like. But yeah, like Lynn Ramsay is Lynn Ramsay's great, and I met by total chance got hired to do like photography at an engagement party one time, and it turned out it was Lynn Ramsay's niece. And so I'm like, yes, finally I can make some nepotism happen. But no, she wasn't there. But yeah, man, I'd say if anyone is not checked out, if I was going to recommend just one piece of Scottish miserablest cinema for someone to check out, the only time to watch one thing, watch Ratcatcher by Lynn Ramsay, because that's definitely sums up the vibe.
Yeah, incredible filmmaker. I'm a really big fan of what's called it. We need to talk about Kevin, but I haven't seen it in ages. I completely forgot it was Ezra Miller.
Yeah, man, so did I. I didn't, because I heard all this shit about this guy. Is this YouTube TOS if I call him a guy? This person who'd
yeah.
that was me testing the TOS out for you. This
Yeah.
person who is playing the Flash, who like there's someone I
Yeah,
watched a YouTube.
flipping like while the Flash was going on, it was like a new news report about like every other day, and they were just escalating. Like I think the first one was like they got pissed and like attacked someone at a karaoke bar, and then they just kept getting arrested for different things and but like about 3 weeks in, like I'm sure they were running a cult or something.
Oh yeah, no, he was trying
I'm sure
to
there
get
was some kind of human trafficking involved.
one of the stories that I heard about Ezra Miller is like he went to a party, he went to a house party, and the woman who owned the house, her 12-year-old daughter was there, and Ezra Miller was like trying to get the 12-year-old daughter to like come with him to his compound. And then when the mother stepped in and was like, "You're not doing that," he started like calling her like a white colonizer and like like just like accusing her of just like all kinds of like hate crimes and shit like that. Like he is just he's literally out of his mind. He's out of his mind, and I hope he gets the help he needs after being investigated. But yeah, man, it is wild how how that casting must have happened. Like, you got to think like Ezra Miller must have been giving off some seriously like bad vibes. If they're like, you know what, we're gonna get him in this school shooter movie because he's really nailing the kind of vibe of it.
Yeah, let's switch around. This next film I want to mention, I think it's what we call it? It's set in Scotland, but I think it's by like an English filmmaker. But I think it's a film that's like, I think there's a bit of influence of what we call it, Scottish miserablism in it, even though it's like quite a surreal genre piece. And it's Under the Skin by Jonathan Glazer.
Oh yeah,
Now,
that is a dope little movie.
Yeah, you know, the old cliche that they talk when they talk about things like Taxi Driver and all this kind of thing, where they say New York City is a character in it. Like, I feel like in Under the Skin, you can say that about the Scottish backdrop.
Oh yeah, yeah. So the funniest thing about Under the Skin for me was watching it, and it's like, it's apparently a lot of it was shot guerrilla style in Glasgow. They didn't have permission to shoot a lot of the stuff, and the director Jonathan Glazer, is that right?
Yeah,
yeah. He wanted Scarlett Johansson to have natural interactions with the locals, but I think he forgot that he was shooting a lot of this stuff in like Ibrox and the south side of Glasgow, right? There's one scene in particular, and it's so strange because I know the exact street that it's filmed on, and it's weird again being from a place like Glasgow where it's not often represented on film. When the big films from like the US or like anywhere else come over to shoot here, they'll use like a little street corner here and there, and you normally can't make out really where it is. But this is like, I know exactly the location it was. Scarlett Johansson in a wig pulls her van over, rolls the window down, and goes,
yeah.
And she's got an English accent. She's like, "Excuse me, can you show me the way to the motorway?" And this Scottish dude just turns around and goes, "Oh, here, this is going to be pure difficult to explain, by the way, man." And he starts telling her how to get to the motorway, right? And you could tell she has no fucking idea what this cunt is saying. She's just sitting there going, yeah, so I go that way. And I'm like, that is the most hilarious thing. But apparently that scene was like, that guy didn't know he was in a movie. And then obviously they have to get him to sign the release form afterwards. So they told, and it's like, how the fuck did you not notice Scarlett Johansson was driving in a white van through that? But I suppose it's the last thing you would expect if you're walking down the road in Ibrox. You'd be like, yeah, Scarlett Johansson's about to pull up and ask me for directions, and then I'm going to be in a fucking major motion picture in 2 minutes. But that movie is so good. Like this, the imagery is so different. A lot of it as well was filmed. We're talking a lot about stuff filmed in Glasgow and Edinburgh, but there was a lot of stuff filmed in Kinell, up on that, or down, I should say, in that in that region of Oban. And that's one of the most like beautiful regions of Scotland. So yeah, there was like that. Under the Skin is really, really good. I need to watch that again. Actually, I've not watched that in a good few years.
And talk about a flipping soundtrack.
Oh, aye,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is kind of like funny because like Scarlett Johansson's supposed to be like an alien in it, like in human form, and like as much as like the director wanted it to be like completely like natural, like you know, in terms of like the interactions, which is why he was sort of filming people and then getting their permission afterwards. Like the most natural way to make Scarlett Johansson, like what should we call it, seem like an alien is make her talk to Scottish people in Scotland.
Yeah, it was probably a bit of method acting on her part because she probably had no fucking clue what these like Jesus Christ, because it has to be difficult, man, for non-Scottish, especially like people from the rest of the UK struggle sometimes. Americans, like it's got to be a culture shock. Especially again, as I said, you're not just going to like the West End or going into like the centre of Glasgow or whatever. You're going to the bits. Like it's you know what I mean.
Like flipping, I'm like for the like. I've been watching a bit because I've been getting back into writing mode. Like I've been watching like a lot of Iron Bar stuff and a bit of Bristow and that, like to sort of get in the headspace for writing for Glasgow. But like the week before, I'm only going to watch Scottish battle rap, so I could just like flipping, just acclimatize myself to the dialect.
Yeah, man, it's different. It's a different kind of dialect for sure. It's and what a lot of people probably don't understand as well is like for such a small country, it's got like such a variety of accents. Like if you literally take a 30-minute drive outside of Glasgow, people sound totally different. At least to my ears. I mean, and maybe not to a tourist, but like the slang is different. The way we pronounce words is different. It's a wild country, bro.
Flipping, that's one thing. Like, you know, flipping, like if I'm writing for performing in Scotland, I'm never gonna like try and use any local slang because I don't know. Like, because if I hear someone saying something, I don't know if it's something that's specific. That's what should we call it? Something that's all over Scotland or specific to one housing estate that they happen to be from. Like,
yeah. And there's nothing worse than trying to pander. Trying to come here and pander. You know what I mean? Especially when people just start doing bars about like haggis and buckfast and just like and heroin and just all that shit that we're supposed to love, but a lot of people do. Well, people do love Bucky. People love Bucky. But and people do love heroin. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. People do fucking love heroin, bro. but we don't love hearing about it, you know.
Yeah, and as what should we call it? Doug Stanhope famously said, "I'm saving that one for last. It's not that addictive because it's boring."
Right, exactly.
Flipping like
go out on a high.
I'd probably cost myself a judge's decision there with the last one, but in my defense, I was battling someone who did used to be on heroin.
You were, but you combined like two of the things that the Scottish people don't want to hear about, which is deep fried Mars bars and heroin. You said he got caught injecting heroin into the Mars bars of dick veins, which is really funny. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, cunts were just like, nah, we're not fucking with that. We're not fucking with that.
Yeah, flipping. I said I was going to like swerve. Admit they only did heroin for a specific reason. This way, I was going to swerve deep fried food, and then flipping fired up a melody battle. Oh Christ, I'm battling a fat cunt again, aren't I? Flipping, you're baiting me into it, man. You're giving me the former heroin user and the fat bastard. I'm being set up here, man.
I'd say you should battle an alcoholic next, but we already battled, so like it's all good. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I kind of don't really know what else to touch on instead of Scottish. Oh yeah. So like one of the things I just wanted to bring up, just to bring this movie to people's attention because it's a gem for all the wrong reasons. It's a gem of bad cinema, but also like what the fuck cinema. So in the early 2000s, the film critic Richard Jobson, who's he's from Scotland, I can't remember exactly where he's from. He was a former like punk artist, I think, and then he became a film critic, and then he started making films of his own. Somehow pulled off a martial arts remake of The Warriors set in Glasgow.
The Purifiers.
The Purifiers, right? I got to pull this up real quick because I've so one of the cast members, funnily enough, is Dominic Monaghan, who people will remember from Lord of the Rings. He's in a martial arts movie that's set in Glasgow, and he's doing some martial arts. He ain't very good at it. It's got 3.2 stars on IMDb. That's probably a little more than it deserves. Yeah, Kevin McKidd's in it, and he's the main bad dude. And it's such a strange film to watch, especially when you're from Glasgow, because again, it was shot about 20 years ago in Glasgow. And they tried to make it look slick as fuck. Like, you know, that kind of early 2000s style. Like,
yeah, when they use the flipping Hollywood, when it's shot on video, but they're trying to use like the filters that sort of
filter, like the green filter. Yeah, it's like they're trying to make everything look like the Matrix, but it just ends up looking like a Daniel Bedingfield video, like that kind of shit. And everyone's in like leather jackets, and it's got this like this like mad sci-fi military sci-fi font that you would see on like the side of a spaceship, kind of just all over everything. Like the whole credits are like that. And yeah, man, it's I gotta give it some credit. I do gotta give it some credit, because I don't think prior to that there was ever a martial arts movie like that made in Glasgow, and I don't know if there has been one since. You know,
nothing
Richard
if not
Jobson,
groundbreaking.
Yeah, right. And I actually think you could still find it on Amazon. I'm not sure. I used to have it in DVD. In fact, I still think I might have the DVD of it somewhere. I saw it. The reason I found out about it, I remember like hearing about it around the time that it came out. And then I saw it in like a secondhand DVD shop, and I just had to get it. But what it does is it shows there are parts of Glasgow that do actually look like a modern city, more so now than they were back then. But it really, I mean, it shows you like all of the different just different little areas that don't really get used a lot in Glasgow for filming. Like there's a Chinatown here. Right, not a lot of people know there's a Glasgow Chinatown. It is like one like street corner. I'm not gonna lie, it's like one building, but they show all that. There's martial arts sequences in it, and the choreography itself is decent. The way that it's shot and executed, not so much. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, what kind of? It sounds like something that somebody would come up at like 4 o'clock in the morning in somebody's kitchen on just like a coke binge, right? And they'd be like, "Going to make a film, mate. Going to make a film. I'm going to make a film, right? Seen the Warriors? Aye. Seen the Warriors? Aye. Seen the Warriors? Aye. Aye. Seen the Warriors? Going to do that, mate. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put fucking kung fu in it. I'm going to shoot it in fucking town, mate. I'm going to shoot it at the science centre. I'm going to shoot We're going to go Chinatown, right? It's all this kung fu and that, right? Chinatown. I'm going to shoot that there, man. I'm going to get fucking one of the hobbits for Lord of the Rings to be in it, mate. It'd be fucking brilliant. Totally, man. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it came about.
Yeah, flipping. I pulled up the Wikipedia article, which is a single sentence, and what should we call it? Flipping a like 7-person cast list.
Yeah.
So, like I'm all over this. You described to me. I googled it. Like I meant to watch the trailer and did get round to it, but
you know what's funny? I watched the trailer because I didn't watch this again before we did this, but I watched the trailer again just to like remind myself of what it looked like, and the trailer makes it look kind of good, but it's not good. But what I like is like the costume design, like because you know, like the Warriors, they had all the different kinds of gangs with the vests and that. But they tried to update it and make it look kind of futuristic, but you know, 2000s futuristic. So like one of the gangs literally it wears like skin tight white tank tops with lighty up crosses in the center, like glow in the dark neon light up crosses in the center, and they ride about Glasgow in like a big van, and like just every like 2000s like post Matrix stereotype that could have been put in a movie is just shoehorned right the fuck in there.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone gets a kick out of like bad movies, watch the Purifiers.
Yeah,
You won't be disappointed, but you will be disappointed because it's not very good.
I can confirm that you can rent it on Amazon Prime for £3.49.
That's it. Give Richard Jobson £3.49 because he probably needs it. Nah, shout out to him, man. One of my favorite. He used to have a movie review show, and there's a clip on YouTube of his movie review show where he had Vincent Gallo on, and he had like 3 different critics review Buffalo 66.
Yeah.
And then they brought Vincent Gallo on out of nowhere without telling the critics.
Yeah.
And Vincent Gallo just sort of like he's wearing like a USA jumpsuit, and he just sort of casually sits there and tells them all that they're all idiots and they don't know anything about cinema. It's one of my favorite like I'm a big Vincent Gallo fan, but that's like one of my favorite pieces of media that he's ever done. Just because it's so like
confrontational.
It's so confrontational, but he's so like low key with it. But you can tell like he's got so much disdain for these people for sitting and like having the gall to like slag his film off. Buffalo 66 is a fucking great film, though.
Have you ever heard of like the German director Uwe Boll?
Yes. I've seen quite a few of his movies.
Yeah, like you heard about him, his critic thing, didn't?
Yeah, he fought a bunch of critics, didn't they? Like he chose.
Yeah. Like the thing was like because like he does a lot. Like he manages to get money for his films. Like he tends to get a lot of like licenses to video games. He did House of the Dead, which for a long time was like the worst reviewed movie on IMDb, and you know he's done Blood Rain and all these sort of things. And I think he did a World War II Nazi movie. That's on Prime.
I don't remember that. He did a lot of people don't know this before. This was actually before I think he did any of his video game movies. He did like a Columbine school shooter movie, and it's one of the most tasteless fucking things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, but flipping like his thing was like he set up this thing that was like, oh, it's supposed to be like a charity boxing match with all these critics, like, but like I think
I remember that.
Yeah, I think like the critics were like under the impression that it was just going to be like some silly, like they were going to have big comedy gloves or something. And like fucking, you know, it was just going to be some like silly, like fun thing for charity. But like Uwe Boll had like just written off a year to just training for this.
Yeah.
And just absolutely murdered like flipping.
Yeah, because like I do remember, and then he used some of the footage in a movie of his, I think, didn't he? I think it was
I think so.
Was it the Far Cry movie? I can't remember. He used the footage from one of his movies, but yeah, like I just remember seeing some footage from that, and it was just like the skinniest bunch of nerds that he possibly could have, because he had hundreds of people to pick from. But it was like 3 or 4 of like the skinniest, most out of shape nerds who also didn't think that it was really going to happen, so they didn't bother to train. What a dickhead, man! No, but there's Uwe Boll retired from filmmaking because he tried to crowdfund a film and got $0. And there's like a very short clip of the video that he put up on YouTube where he's just like, there is no money for the film, so that is it. I retire. Fuck you all. Goodbye. That was his like speech at the end. Just like, wow, what an absolute maniac.
Flipping, I'm sure there was mutters of him like returning. Like I can see him like popping out of the woodwork somewhere. Like he's the type of person I can imagine that would fucking like actually die and have 5 more films out.
You know, it's like it's one of these things though, because Uwe Boll, he made a career out of making bad films, but he now has like a cult reputation and cult following. So if he was to come back and announce he was going to do another film, people would go and see it or rent it or buy it. So he'd probably get funding for it. Like he could probably really come. It's like the fucking Tommy Wiseau thing. Like he made a terrible film, but now it's like a cult classic. So
and
now
he
for the
hasn't even
last
had to
15
make
years,
more films.
yeah. So for the last 15 years, he's just been going about. So the film has found an audience, an ironic audience, but then all you do is you pretend like you made the film bad on purpose.
Oh, I've pulled it up, and he has returned from retirement,
Oh shit!
and he's got one film in post-production, and he's in pre-production on a police drama in New York that's out filming in spring. So apparently, like I think he's got like 2 in the clip already.
Wow, man. Oh well, good
Yeah,
luck. Good luck to Uwe Ball.
yeah.
I hope you find success, my friend.
Uh,
Man,
uh,
let
but
me tell
before,
you, filmmaking is fucking hard, and that's why
yeah,
I don't really do it anymore. It is one of the hardest things because it's like you pour time and money and effort and all the dedication that you can into something, and you don't have any idea if it's going to be any good at the end. And it takes so long. There's so few people who get like good at it, and there's very even fewer people who get great at it. It's one of the hardest art forms to ever do, and I don't recommend that anybody do it. So I think that's why I kind of like the fact that the bad movies, there's like a whole community around like watching bad movies. There's a whole
yeah.
appreciation for bad movies, because at least someone's appreciating it, the piece of shit
Yeah.
that you made for something.
Because no matter how bad something is, it's been a big collaborative work between a lot of fucking people who've had to
Yeah,
work
man.
very hard to get it to the point where
Yeah.
people can access it.
Yeah, I mean, like Uwe Boll's like Alone in the Dark, right? Shit
Mm.
film, but it was like the cinematography in that movie. It was shot by somebody who clearly knows what the fuck they're doing,
Mm.
who probably fucking studied for like 8 years and then like ate shit for another 8 years, like to get like, you know
Mm.
what I mean? Like there'll be so many bad movies that just like have incredibly talented people working on them just to get the job, you know?
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I just want what you call it. I don't know if you've got anyone you want to shout out. I want to quickly shout out "Death of a Vlogger" by Graham Hughes. Fucking, I think he's Glasgow based, but that's a very good like sort of small indie horror. He like also stars in it. Like it's about it kind of predates a lot of the screen life found footage stuff that started emerging like during COVID, because he put it out in like 2019. It's about this guy who's a YouTuber, always trying to get views, and his gaff's supposedly haunted, and he's trying to look into it, and you know, there's a lot of could go either way kind of stuff, and it's sort of like basically like a documentary, like based on his like videos and like what he was trying to achieve and like what was actually happening. That's a very very good indie horror film. I'd definitely recommend checking that one out. So big up
Cool,
Graham
man.
Hughes.
I'll check that out, man. I've not heard of that. I'll check that out.
Yeah, Death of a Vlogger is very good.
Nice.
You got any other little known gems you want to shout out?
I want to shout out a few people whose films most of them you could probably find on YouTube, or just about if you Google them. Once again, my guy Gary Fraser, he's quite involved in the Scottish hip hop scene too. He's directed a lot of videos up here, and he's a good dude. So shout out to him. You can check his films on YouTube. Who else? My boy Hendo, who won the New Talent BAFTA a few years ago for a musical film called The Small Things that he produced about Glasgow. Shout out to him. James Price, he's another good one. Brian M. Ferguson, he's like a one-man crew type guy, but the films that he makes are like David Cronenberg, like body horror, like crazy low budget shit. But he's gone on since to direct music videos for like Arab Strap and Garbage. Like salute Brian M. Ferguson. He's another one of like of underground like indie filmmakers in Scotland. Even though he's only done shorts, like he's definitely up there, one of my favorites. And who else?
Andy Stewart on the
Oh
Scottish
yeah,
short body horror tip and all. Like
Andy Stewart. Yeah. And who else? David Graham Scott, who's a Scottish documentary filmmaker, who's most famous for filming his own heroin detox on Ibogaine.
bloody hell.
Yeah, you should watch. It's called Detox or Die, the movie.
Mm.
But he made a film in the late 90s about homeless people in Glasgow who went about collecting like old cables from building sites, burning them and selling the copper. It's called Wire Burners, and it's a real good snapshot of Glasgow in the 90s. That movie. So yeah, shout out to David Graham Scott, and I think that's about it. To be honest, I think we've really like been quite comprehensive in everyone that we've covered.
I've come away with some shit that I'm going to be checking out pretty much immediately while this is fucking uploading. So that's fucking buzzing, which is what I always like when we have these sort of discussions. Defo check out Death of a Vlogger. So we'll round it out as we started. The event, Iron Bars, we'll have the link in the description for the early bird tickets, which are going fast.
Yes. July 15th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Classic Grand in Glasgow. And then we're probably just all gonna fucking go to the pub after. I don't know. But yeah, it's gonna be a sick little event. And I don't really have much else to promote other than check my battles from the battle season on Premier Battles. I've got 2 that are on the Patreon at the moment, premierbattles.club. My battle with Unanimous and my battle with Crow from last weekend, which actually turned out to be, and I'm not saying this because it's me, from both like one of the best battles of the season, like hands down, little sleeper hit. And once that hits YouTube, people are gonna like pay fucking attention to that. Yeah, Knights Battle Club. That's about it.
Cool. Well, we'll wrap it up there. I'm Kinell. This has been the KSC Podcast. Safe.